Buying a car is harder than ever right now because the reality is the average American can't afford the average car. According to 2023 data, the average American takes home about $3,308 per month after taxes and contributions, which comes out to just under 40 grand per year. And how this comes into play in the context of buying a car is that if you are somebody who needs or wants to buy a car, financial experts really agree that you shouldn't put more than 10% of your take-home monthly pay towards your car payment. And truthfully, in an ideal situation, it should really even be less than that 10% number. That means that if you are an average income earner here in America, you really shouldn't be paying more than $330 per month on your car payment. And well, with interest rates on used cars ranging anywhere between 7.5% for super prime borrowers all the way to an astronomical 21% for deep subprime borrowers, this means that if you are like many buyers and you put 0% down, finance for 72 months at a 9.5% interest rate, which is sort of in the middle in this current car market, you could really only afford no more than $18,000 on a used car. And this could get you things like this 2017 Kia Niro, the 2020 Ford Escape, or this 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander, all with between 75 and 100,000 miles. But of course, this is taking into consideration that you don't put any money down and you finance for the longest term possible, which is about 72 months. Though I guess technically you could finance for 84 months, though that definitely isn't recommended. Whereas if you take a more fiscally responsible approach and you put 20% down and finance for only 3 years or 36 months, then that means you could really only afford a car that costs about 13 grand. And this would buy you something like a 2017 Dodge Journey Crossroad, this 2014 Ford Edge, or this 2013 Honda Civic, all with nearly 100,000 miles or more. And of course, there is also every other scenario in between, whether you finance for 72 months and put 20% down, whether you finance for 48 months and put 0% down. There is a wide variety of scenarios that could play out whenever you're financing a car. But what is crazy is that the average used car payment in America isn't $330, but it's instead $533. So 60% more than what the average American should actually be spending on the average car payment. And don't even get me started on new cars, which have an average payment of over $726. Not to mention how harmful this is to your personal finances whenever we take into account your other expenses as well. Like, for example, rent, which on average in America costs about $1,900 per month. Student loan payments, which for the average borrower is about $500 per month. Or groceries, which can range anywhere from $250 per month to $500 per month per person in a household. The point is, whenever we take into account all of these facts and figures, it becomes very, very clear very quickly why the average credit card balance in Q3 of last year was $6,088. But I digress. The point is, we can talk all day long about how if you're somebody who's wanting to buy a car and you want to do so financially responsibly, you really shouldn't be putting more than 10% of your take-home monthly pay towards the car purchase. You should be putting 20% down and you shouldn't be financing for more than 36 months. But the reality is, for the majority of people, this just isn't realistic because let's face it, the average person isn't going to want to buy a car that's 13 years old with 100,000 miles on it. And this just isn't a route that the majority of people are going to be going down. For one reason or another, the average American isn't going to be going with a significantly older, higher mileage car just for the sake of adhering to personal financial principles. And even if you were to talk to somebody and tell them what they should be spending, there is still a high likelihood that they will still opt in to the more expensive, financially riskier car simply because they want to. But the good news is that even if you are somebody who's hell-bent on buying the more expensive vehicle, there are still ways that you can go about decreasing your financial risk and decreasing your monthly car payment and purchase price. Or alternatively, increase your overall buying power without actually sacrificing anything about the car that you're purchasing. And the first way that you can go about doing this is lowering your interest rate. And in order to accomplish this, you should be financing with a credit union. The reality is, in today's economical climate and where interest rates currently are, you should absolutely be financing either your new or used car purchase with a credit union. While normal rates for used cars in today's climate range anywhere between 7 and 21%, with the average sitting in the low double digits, credit unions are dramatically cheaper, and on average you can get a rate anywhere between 5 and 7%. And when it comes to what types of credit unions you should choose, you could choose small local credit unions within your city, state-specific credit unions, or you could choose some of the most highly rated ones on national ranking lists. For example, PenFed, Alliant, Navy Federal, as well as a variety of other highly rated ones. You will want to make sure that whatever credit union you choose, they offer the services that you're really looking for. For example, whenever I chose a credit union, I chose one because of the fact that it offered vehicle financing for businesses, individuals, and private party purchases, which not all credit unions do. I also made sure to open up the account with my credit union about 6 to 8 months before I actually purchased a car with that credit union. I opened up the accounts, I deposited money into there, I made sure there was some monthly activity, and then 6 months later, I ended up financing a car and I had absolutely no problems. And while I don't know that I necessarily didn't have any problems because I had opened up the account 6 months prior, I do think that this is a safe route to go down. If you know that you're going to be making a purchase in the future, I would go ahead and open that credit union account today. Getting a loan with your credit union and as a result lowering your interest rate from say 9.5% to 6%, this could in turn result in lowering your monthly payment by $20 per month, which results in about $240 in yearly savings. Or alternatively, it can increase your buying power by about $550. And while this may not seem like a lot, this can have a hefty impact, especially for somebody who's financing a car for say 72 months. And it can also compound on other efforts, resulting in a ton of savings. Another tactic to lower cost is to simply choose a car with less maintenance. Maintenance costs can heavily swing the affordability of a car, and I'm constantly telling people that cheap cars are not created equal. Say a $13,000 Audi is not going to have the same monthly payment associated with it as a $13,000 Toyota, because that $13,000 Audi is going to have significantly higher maintenance costs, resulting in overall higher monthly payments. And even if you were able to buy, say, a $13,000 BMW, Mercedes, or Audi that adheres within that 10% rule, chances are that once you take into account things like repairs, maintenance, insurance, you are far going to exceed that 10% at the end of the day. When choosing a car, looking at reliability and maintenance is absolutely crucial. And when determining this, you can of course look online at most and least reliable lists of the year. You can also review consumer reports. But one of the best ways that I have found to gauge real vehicle reliability is to simply ask owners that own these cars. Joining Facebook groups, reading through Reddit threads, even watching YouTube videos or TikToks can be extremely helpful. The point is that choosing a car that has low maintenance costs and high reliability is going to be extremely important if cost is an issue when buying a car, because if you choose a car that has high maintenance and high repair costs, then you are far going to exceed the 10% recommended amount to go towards your car purchase. Whereas if you buy a car that has exceptional repairs and maintenance costs, you may be able to justify getting a little bit more of an expensive car because of the fact that it will be cheaper long term. But whenever it comes to what types of cars you should consider, here are a few that I recommend. First is Toyota, which on average costs $5,996 in the first 10 years of operation. Honda is another good choice, which costs about $7,800 in the first 10 years. And Mazda is number 3, which costs $8,000 in the same 10-year period of time. While the worst cars to buy for the sake of operational cost is Ram, which costs just under $17,000 for the same period of time, Jeep, which costs $11,400, and Chrysler, which also costs $11,400. The point is, buying a car with low operational costs is incredibly important if you're somebody who's wanting to make the right financial decision with your next car purchase. And while you certainly wouldn't spend exceptionally more on a vehicle simply because it is more reliable, I do think in some ways this can justify getting a newer, nicer car if reliability is significantly better, especially if we're looking at models like a Ram compared to a Toyota or a Jeep compared to a Honda. Reliability is so incredibly important, and this is something that everybody should be focused on. But truthfully, one of the best tactics that you can use in order to actually stretch how much of a car you can actually afford is to buy a car that doesn't depreciate, or at least doesn't depreciate a lot. And while I don't necessarily recommend taking this tactic, this is where paying attention to your monthly payment instead of the total purchase price of a vehicle could theoretically make sense. One of the worst things that you can do financially when buying a car is buying either a new or slightly used car that has a heavy depreciation rate. For example, this Audi. This 2018 Audi A6 with relatively low mileage is for sale for $23,445. This car on the surface seems like a solid deal. Low mileage, somewhat new, but also used, and it's a luxury car for under $25,000. But when we look at this car and how it depreciates, it doesn't look great, and an almost identical car that is a few years older with higher mileage is selling for $16,579. That is a $6,866 loss for 3 years and roughly 50,000 miles. Whereas on the flip side, you have something like a Toyota 4Runner, which you could buy a used 2021 model for $31,800. This car has just around 50,000 miles. And you could potentially own that car and not lose any money at all, because there's this 2018 model with 20,000 more miles selling for virtually the same price, $31,989. In fact, it is selling for slightly more than the 2021 alternative. With this car, you could very literally own this car for 2 to 3 years, put 30 to 40,000 miles on it, and you could sell that car for the exact same price that you purchased for it, making your entire ownership completely free. Toyota is one of the best cars that align with this methodology because of the fact that they hold their value so incredibly well, but there are a variety of different makes and models that also can apply here. And the way that you can figure out which cars would apply here is to go into cars.com or any other third-party website, then apply whatever filters you want in order to adhere to the car that you want to purchase, and then look at the newer, lower mileage one and the price of those cars compared to the older, higher mileage alternatives. If these prices are very similar, it means that the cost of ownership for the car, whenever it comes to depreciation standpoint, is going to be very, very low. But if these price points are very different and the newer model is significantly more expensive than the older one, that's where you could potentially lose a lot of money, and I would stay clear from those cars. And truthfully, going this route is going to be your best bet whenever it comes to buying a car. Obviously, in an ideal world, you would buy a car that adheres to this 10% principle that I mentioned earlier. You would pay off that car within 36 months, and and then you would drive that car until the wheels fall off. But love it or hate it, the majority of people just aren't going to do this. So instead, buying cars that are not depreciating at a normal rate, buying these cars used and selling them for more or equal to what you paid for them, that is truly the way to hack car ownership. And of course, doing other things like going with a credit union and choosing cars with high reliability are great things to do on top of that. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, the average American probably isn't going to be buying a $13,000 car. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.